Bienvenidos, Ushamdid, and welcome Anne Arundel Community College learners from the Spring 2023 semester taking the CTS-233 Section 400 Network Programmability course. This is the Cisco Networking Academy's DEVASC 200-901 Certification Exam Preparation course. And in this video tutorial, our focus is going to be on Lab 1.2.2, which is the Linux Review Lab. And in this video, our focus is on Part 2, where we're going to go deep dive into the ls command, the pwd command, the cd command, and we're going to take a look at some commands where we need sudo. So let's go ahead and dive into our DEVASC virtual machine. Now, to get to the CLI, remember that you just need to double-click on the terminal icon. Now, I already have a terminal window open. You'll notice that when you initially open it, everything is really tiny here. It's kind of hard to see. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the window up that I already have open, where I've increased and enlarged the font so that we can see things a little bit easier. So again, once that terminal window opens up, we want to know what is in the current working directory, because we're in our home directory, and so there should be some files in here. And ls is a great command to see that. And it basically stands for list. In other words, list out the contents of, in this case, the directory that I'm currently sitting in. So we can see that we've got some color-coded assistants here. The things that are purplish blue, those are directories, and we'll see how we can determine that a little bit later on. And the file names that are in white means that those are just regular, non-executable from an execute permission standing. They don't have the execute bit set, but they're just regular files, right? So we could also say ls if we wanted to learn about the contents of a directory, right? So labs is purple, and so we're going to assume here that DEVASC VM, we would see that it's going to be a different color if it's a directory. We could do the same thing for documents. Nothing in my documents folder. What about my downloads folder? And I say folder, but think of folder. I use folder and directory as synonymous terms. So we don't see anything in there. What about snap? Anything in that snap? Sure, we've got some stuff inside there. Postman, code, Chromium. All right. So that's how we can use the ls command to display the contents of different folders. So now we're gonna step things up a bit here, and I'm going to say ls -l. Now this is telling the ls command I want a long listing. And so here's what you're going to see when there's a long listing. You're going to see a lot of information. We're going to see not only the type of file, which is indicated by the first bit in the far left-hand column here. D stands for directory. If it has a dash, it simply means it's a regular file. It means it's not a directory, not a different type of file. It's just a regular file. And then the 9 bits that follow, these are the permission bits. And we'll talk about the permission bits as we make our way through here. The X, as you might expect, stands for execute. And so the files that are white here, you'll notice that the X is not on in any of the permission settings. And again, that's why these are going to be white. And we'll talk about the change mode command and how you can change the permissions on these files. So we also see the owner of the file, which is this column right here. And then we see the group, and sometimes those can be the same like they are here. This is the name of the group to which this file, or in this case, this directory, is associated. Now, in Linux, just like in old school Unix, everything is a file, whether it's a directory, whether it's a symbolic link, whether it's just a regular text file, whether it's an executable C program. Everything in Linux is a file. So the owner and the group, that we then see the date that the file was last modified. You can see here February 10th. So yesterday something happened with that devices.txt file. I was doing some tutorials. So that would have changed right around, it looks like 2 o'clock. And so we can see some different information, but we see a lot more information with the -l. Now, you'll notice that it prints things out in alphabetical order irrespective of the capitalization, right? So Yes, Linux is case sensitive. However, when we're printing out the contents of a directory, that case sensitivity it really doesn't account for much because it's going to arrange it alphabetically irrespective of whether things are uppercase or lowercase. Now, if I wanted to do this in the reverse direction, I can combine options. So I could say ls space -lr. And that is going to order everything in the reverse alphabetical order. So that gives us a long listing in reverse alphabetical order. Now, one of the things you might be asking is, well, okay, how can I see all of the different options that are available? Well, we can use the man page for that, and man stands for manual. So I'm going to say man ls. In other words, show me the manual page for the ls command. Now, the manual pages are definitely helpful. They tend to be a little bit terse, but it's going to give us a great idea of all of the different options that we can use, both short and long. The short option would be, in this instance, -a. The long option, which does the same thing, would be --all. Right now, I'm a huge fan of not typing a lot of things. I make tons of typos. So I'll typically use the short options. And you can combine the short options as well, as you've already seen. So let's take a look at what that ls-a might do. So if I say ls-a, you'll notice that we're seeing a whole bunch of other files, specifically those that begin with the dot, right, or the period. So ls-a is going to show us all of the files that are in the directory. And if I was to say man ls, we can hit the carriage return here. It moves us a line at a time. And take a look. Do not ignore entries starting with a dot. And what that means is don't ignore the files that are in whatever the directory is that you're listing out the contents of. Don't ignore what we refer to as hidden files. And the reason that we call files that begin with a dot hidden files is because when you just type ls, you don't see them. You have to put this option, short or long, in order to see the files that begin with a period or to see the hidden files. Now, when I say hidden, this is not a security feature, right? So as you can see, all someone would have to do is say, oh, okay, ls-a, and they can see your hidden files. So don't think that you're hiding them for security purposes. They're being hidden because in most cases, they're configuration files of some sort that you wouldn't actually want to have listed out unless you were trying to go in to edit that file. Now, there are two entries that are in here that are very important. The dot and the dot over here in the far left-hand column. And we talked about these a little bit when we met last Tuesday. So the dot, if I say ls dot, that basically says, and the dot here represents where I'm currently at, my current working directory. And this is a good segue to the pwd command, print working directory. Well, where am I right now? I'm in /home/devasc. Well, what does the dot mean? Well, the dot means the parent directory, or the directory immediately above in the file system hierarchy where I'm currently located. So ls dot is going to print out the contents of /home. And what's in /home? Well, it's just my user home directory, devasc. And so that's why it only shows us devasc. That's all that's there. Now, the dot and the dot also come in handy with when you combine them with other Linux utilities, and we're going to take a look at how we might use that here shortly. Now, the man pages are great, and if I hit the space bar, it's going to go a page at a time, and you can see there are a lot of different options to be used here with the ls command. Now, it doesn't give us a ton of examples, and this is where ChatGPT might come in handy. We talked about leveraging AI. Can you show me the most popular options used with the Linux ls command and sample output? So ChatGPT is a great place to come if you didn't want to look at the man pages and say, hey, ChatGPT, show me some of the most popular options that are used with output, and take a look. It's going to show me ls-a, and then it gives you the long option as well, ls-l, or the long option as well, and it shows you what you would expect to see, right? Or -h for human readable. So ChatGPT is a great way to supplement and sort of augment your learning experience. Now, we can also say ls-help, and this is going to give us a consolidated, sort of an abbreviated list of all of the different options. Not as verbose, but as you can see here, it's going to show us, oh, so we've got a reverse. So reverse the order while listing out what we want to see. If I wanted to see the size of each file in blocks, I could use -s. And so you can see here, if you wanted to see the inode numbers, and again, I can combine, if I clear the screen, I can say ls-laisr. So this is going to give me a long listing. It's going to include the hidden files. It's going to show me all of the inode numbers. I've actually already forgot what the S is going to show us. And then the R is it's going to give it to us in reverse order. I'm sorry, size. It's going to give us the size in blocks. And so let's go ahead and hit enter and see what we get. So if we were to scroll back up a little bit here, you can see that we get the inode number here, right? We've got our long listing permissions, the users, it's in reverse alphabetical order. And take a look, it doesn't care that there is a dot, that it's a hidden file. If it's X, right? X comes before V, comes before S, comes before, it's still going to drop it in reverse alphabetical order. And so we can combine all of those options on the command line. So definitely get in there and work with the ls command. Now, let's talk about that let's talk about the pwd command, right? Print working directory. Now, this is going to help you if maybe you get lost or you don't know where you're at in the file system, because you can see we have a tilde here. And what does that tilde mean? Well, that is shorthand for your home directory. And in the virtual machine for the course, your home directory is always /home/dev-asc. And again, that's how you can confirm, where am I? Now, maybe I'm in the temp directory and I'm using the cd command to change directories, and /temp is listed here. So in the prompt, it's configured so that you'll see your current working directory or your present working directory. So if I said pwd, we could see we're in /temp. If I go to cd user local bin, which I think exists here, and it does, you can see that it's going to tell us in the prompt where in the Linux file system hierarchy we are currently located. And pwd is just going to echo that out. Now, if you get lost in the file system structure and you want to get back to your home directory so that you at least know where it is you're at, all you have to do is type in the cd command by itself and hit enter. That puts you back into your home directory. Now, I have learners will ask, well, wait a second, you said that the tilde represents my current or my home directory. So can I just say tilde and hit enter? And the answer is no. You could say cd tilde, but why type the tilde in here if it's not needed? At least in this use case, hey, I just want to get back into my home directory. cd by itself, change directory by itself, will put you back in your home directory. Now, you could even come out to ChatGPT and you could see it was all done with the ls command. Can you show me different options for the Linux cd command? And ChatGPT is going to pump some of these options out. Now, I recommend not only typing in the question here and taking a look at the output, but then running the commands that they're showing you to see what is it that you see. And I love how they included the ... Now, take a look at this. Switch to the previous directory, cd space dash. Now, that's a command, an option that I'm not even familiar with, and let's see if that would work. So the previous directory was user local bin. If I type cd dash and hit enter, take a look at that. And again, I had no idea that was even an option. Hadn't seen that before. So even after 30 plus years of working with Unix and Linux, I'm still learning things, right? So what an amazing option, so that I don't have to type in cd space slash user slash local slash bin. I can just type cd dash. And look at that. It's going to move me back and forth between my home directory and the previous directory that I was in. In this case, it was user local bin. But is that not cool? So cd space dash, and ChatGPT gave us that answer. All right, so that's the cd command. Now let's take a look at the dot and the dot dot, because it showed us examples of using the dot dot. So if I say cd space dot dot, that's going to move me into the parent directory. In this case, slash home. What if I use it again? Now it's going to push me all the way to the very top of the Linux file system hierarchy, which is the root directory. And even in the root directory, you see the dot in the dot dot. Now, how much higher up can I go? Well, we can't. And as I pointed out on Tuesday evening, this is just simply going to, we're already in the root directory. We're at the top of the file system hierarchy. So if I type cd dot dot, it's just going to loop me and leave me right here, right? Now, can we combine the dot dots? So sure, if I said, well, I want to get out of my home directory, put me into the home directory, and then put me all the way up into the root directory. And that's one way to do it. Now remember, if I say cd dash, this new command, which I'm a huge fan of already, if I say cd space dash, I'm back in my home directory, I could just say cd /. That puts me into that root directory. Again, if I get lost, I can just type cd. What about the cd dash? Where's it going to put me now? Yeah, back in the root directory. I am digging that cd dash command right there. All right. Well, that takes care of using cd. And I should probably point out, if I was to say I want to go into /temp, this is considered an absolute path name. Absolute because it absolutely starts at the top of the Linux file system hierarchy, which is the root directory, the slash. So that is an absolute path name. I can also use relative path names, right? So a relative path name would be, okay, I've got a labs directory here. Put me in the labs directory. That is a relative path name because this command is being interpreted as relative to where I am currently located in the Linux file system. And so it's assuming that when I say cd space labs, that labs is in the directory, that directory labs is in the current directory that I am in. For example, if I was to say, oh, okay, I want to go to temp. Now you'll notice I don't have the / on there. So Linux is going to interpret this to mean, oh, well, he wants to go to the temp directory that is located in the current directory that he's in, which is labs. However, we did an ls, there is no temp directory there, so we get this error message, no such file or directory. So again, that's two examples of using an absolute path name because it starts with that /, meaning I'm giving you the absolute longest path in most cases to get to where it is you want to go. Now let me show you an absolute path name example from our home directory. So I want to go all the way down to where we have some of the DEVASC Python lab files. Well, I would say cd /home/devasc/labs/devnet source/ and I thought we had, and Python. That is an absolute path name, right? Because it starts at the very top of the file system hierarchy, the root directory /. And if I hit enter, it certainly puts me there. Now you'll notice that we don't see /home/devasc at the beginning here. Remember, this is a shorthand. Think of it as like an alias that always represents /home/devasc, which is why you see then /labs devnet source Python. Well, what do we have in here? Well, we've got some Python files that I was using for another lab. All right, well, that's some great examples there of the cd command, the ls command. Go to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT some questions. Hey, give me examples of absolute path names to be used with the cd command as opposed to relative path names. All right, now the last thing that we're going to look at here in this lab in part 2 is how to use sudo. Now, there's some commands that when we go to run those commands, when we go to run those commands, we need to be the root user. And you can think of the root user as the administrator, right? It's sort of the equivalent of a Windows administrator, where you can do anything if you're the root user. However, if I type ID, this is going to tell you that, hey, I'm not the root user. I'm just this DEVASC user. I'm just a regular Joe here working in the Linux file system. So if I say apt-get update, and what this is going to do, this is the advanced package management tool for Linux, is I'm saying, hey, give me a list of all of the possible things that I could update here based on any updates that might be available. Now, this would probably be a pretty long list. However, you can see here it says reading the package list done, can't open the lock file, permission denied, permission denied, permission denied. Because again, in order to update the operating system using apt-get update, and I should say when we update the operating system, this is not upgrading anything. This is sort of giving me an updated list of the available things that we can upgrade. And so we want the sudo command, or sudo, I use sudo. So we want the sudo command, and we want to say apt-get update, because this should prompt me. In some cases, you'll get prompted for your password. However, you can see now the command is running, right? And it's going through, it's looking at the security Ubuntu archive. The security Ubuntu site here, looking for any updates. And these are package update sources that are being looked at to see, hey, based on the software installed on this system, what are the available updates that are out there? And then you could see reading the package lists, and it's done. So I get a list of all these things. Now, I could individually update these things, or I could come over here and say upgrade. And so I'm going to hit enter, and this is now asking me, hey, we've got a lot of things that need to be upgraded. Do you want to continue? And I'm going to go ahead and say no for right now, because one of the things that might upgrade is Python, which we want to keep at 3.8.2. Again, if you took a snapshot of your virtual machine on your host system, right, using whether it's VMware or if you're going to be using the VirtualBox, if you take a snapshot, right, something you can roll back to, then you could go ahead and do all the upgrades, mess around, and then if you break everything, you could just go ahead and roll back. Right? So again, sudo is for commands where we're where we're trying to do something that you need root privileges to do. Like if I wanted to try to go into the etc hosts file, right? You can see right down here, it tells me, hey, this is read only. So when I come down here and I put in, so 192.168.1.68, that's my host. And then I try to save the file, read only option is set, right? And now it says add the exclamation mark to override. Well, I'll do a write quit exclamation mark, and you can see can't open the file for writing. So here's where I would need to quit out. And again, I'm using VI, and this is just for example purposes here. You're not expected to know VI. So what I would have to do is if I said sudo vi/etc/hosts, and then I come down here, and you can see it's not saying read-only anymore, 192.168.1.68, and I'll just put in here, it's my host, and then let's save the file, and look at that, worked great. So cat etc hosts, and it's in there. So again, sudo is required when you're trying to do something that you would need elevated root access to do. All right, well, that concludes part 2 of Lab 1.2.2. Again, our first foray into a Linux review. And hopefully you've picked up some things. And like I said, hey, thanks ChatGPT, I had no idea you could do cd space dash. Very cool. All right. Well, I hope you're enjoying the course so far and learning as much as I'm learning. And that is it for this lab. Thank you for watching. And as always, I hope to see you in the next video.